to But First Coffee. We're live. Of course, with Jackie being off this week, I struggle to have this work because, Restream does not like me. And it is just my constant lot in life. Just my constant lot in life with this. There he is. Hello, my friend. Good morning.
What's up, buddy?
How are you?
I'm good.
So my lot in life is that this point hates me. This is my lot in life, and every time Jackie is not here, it just does not want to do for me. It doesn't link the links through LinkedIn the way it's supposed to. It just hates me. It just hates me. So, but I'm super pumped that you're here. Let me make sure I say that.
Yeah.
Super pumped that you are here, stepping in for Jackie Clayton this week. And I anticipate that there will be hardly any difference between your approach to things and Jackie's approach to things. I mean, be,
Just a small amount. Yeah.
just
Just a little bit.
just a bit.
Just a bit.
I am. First of all, I will apologize in advance for those that have tried to connect earlier and struggled to do so, and because of this, so I am doing my best, and I will yell at Jackie when I talk to her after this is over. She is traveling, so um, just unbelievable. Here we are,
Why why
just
why
unbelievable
why, why do we blame Jackie? She's
because
not
it's
here
her
to
fault.
defend herself.
No,
It's her fault.
that is exactly why it is her fault,
Okay.
and because the travel was not supposed to kind of happen the way that it did, and anyway, but Josh Rock is here, ladies and
I am.
gentlemen.
What's up, people? How we doing?
So for those that are unfamiliar with Josh, will you do me a favor, buddy, and give people the 30 seconds, what you do, how long you've been doing it, where you're doing it, all that good stuff.
Sure. I'd be happy to do that, buddy. So yeah, Josh Rock, talent acquisition manager for an organization called Nuss Truck and Equipment. We are a Mack Volvo heavy truck dealer in Minnesota. Fell into HR just about like 98% of my fellow professionals. I was an HR tech vendor for about 10 years, selling recruitment advertising and solutions. Became a trusted advisor to those in our profession and continue to do it. Living in great state of Minnesota, also
Woo!
known as hashtag state of hockey. Love it.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to throw the hashtags in there apparently.
Hashtag state of
JT,
hockey. Okay.
exactly. I get my hockey on everywhere I go. Most people know me when they see me because I usually have a hockey hat of some sort on. So being that this is on the level of professional, I
It's
figured
not.
I'd
You
not.
could wear
It's
your
not.
hat. It's not. Put that hat
All
on.
right. It's
Uh,
actually in my bag over here at the career fair that I'm supposed to be attending. But I put a sign on my table say, "Hey, I'm talking to some important people
yeah.
on the socials this morning. I'll be back at
Yes.
11 o'clock." So yeah, Joe, you're right. Go Midwest.
Oh my
Specifically,
gosh. Joe is
hey,
from Joe Crusoe is from Wisconsin. So
well,
we're
that's
we're
home of cheese curds, right? That's Nicole Roberts who's joining in as well.
hello,
She's a big fan
Nicole.
of the cheese curds. So Joe, if you could send some cheese curds to Nicole and I, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So actually, funny enough, Joe is actually here in Vero Beach for a few days. So he actually is with me as part of the Humoriso team. So it is fun to have that happening.
Yeah.
Um, so I, I want to jump in a bit to the topic. And I know that, first of all, the fact that you're at a career fair cracks me up. So I appreciate you taking the time to step away and put a little sign on your table. Be back in 15.
I actually put on conducting a national interview.
This is
Be back
true.
in an hour.
This is true. It is a national interview, right? So,
Yep.
um, our topic for this morning is about restarting your career. And so, one of the things that you mentioned, and part of the reason why I thought of you, is because you have changed careers,
A few times.
right? So kind of walk through that for some people, because not everybody has done that. Some people have started and stayed all the way through. What's the inspiration? What goes through your mind when you're like, let me start all over?
Actually, the first thing that goes in my mind, oh shit, what am I
Yeah,
going to
that's
do?
probably the
That's
thing that most people would think of.
Yeah. So where my pivot happened, um, it was 2012. I was working for a recruitment marketing company in Minnesota. Um, I was working remotely, and I get a phone call at like 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon saying, "Hey, we went through a round of capital raising, and the organization said that we needed to trim costs, and you're one of them." That simple. While I'm getting this, and my mind goes numb,
Yes.
I start thinking about the finances of my family. I literally go onto LinkedIn, typing free agent seeking new opportunities, and within an hour, I had 3 interviews.
Ah,
None of them were in recruitment advertising because there really wasn't much of that in Minnesota at the time. Um, and so it was staffing companies and HR roles, and I made the mistake at that time. I didn't know it was a mistake at the time of going into staffing. And God bless anybody who's in staffing. You guys do an amazing job. There's a huge need for you across the country. I said, but unfortunately, it's not for me. It was adult
yeah.
handholding. It was adult daycare. I just couldn't do it. But I leapt at it. I jumped right to it because the person that I was working for was an old member of my team. I was excited about it, but it wasn't for me. And so after that, I went into consulting for a little bit, helping old customers of mine teach them what I was doing from the inside out, but
Hmm.
on their side then, giving them back control, back brand. And it was more of how do I pivot? How do I use what I know in a slightly different way, but still be as excited and passionate about it? Prayed about it, talked to my spouse about it, and made the shift. And literally fell into HR. I wasn't planning on being HR. Don't tell anyone. I hated
You
HR
weren't
back then.
planning. Oh, well,
No,
first of all,
because I didn't want to
let's
do benefits.
right. Hang on a second. I hated HR back then. Let's have some honesty here. It's still
No,
there's it's still today. It's still today.
no. See, I should be carrying one of those mugs or one of those buttons that says "I heart HR"
Oh
because
no.
I'm one.
Oh,
I'm one. I know. Really, John. If I were to go to your house, you probably have 8 zillion of those things,
no.
trinkets, tchotchkes that say "I
No.
heart HR" and "I heart Humoriso" all over the place, right?
That I Heart Humoriso I have all over the place because
Okay.
that's self-serving. So of course I have those things. But yeah.
But it was what I went from. I went from chasing the dollar in sales to chasing
Two.
people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I enjoy it. It's a blast for me. It's the thrill of the hunt. I'm not chasing the thrill of the dollar. I personally get fulfillment from leading people to better careers that then drive their families forward.
Yeah.
It's a blast for me. That's where I fill my bucket.
So uh, there's some discernment there, right?
Mhm.
First of all, you talked about a few different discernment strategies in terms of how you came to the place where you're like, hey, this is the right next thing for me to do. But one of the things that you just mentioned there in terms of I went from sales to HR and the way in which there was something that carried through, right? Some skill set that carried through. How did you know, or did you know that what you had been doing, say in sales, was going to be able to carry over into the next new career?
That's a great question. And where it really came from, I was selling to HR people, so I kind of had an inkling of where their pains were. I mean, every day I was calling somebody at some company saying, "Hey, what's new in your world? What's the problem that you're facing?" And then using the menagerie of tools that we had to make their world better. So knowing that, what I was able to do is then pivot and say, okay, since I know kind of the struggles that they have and tools that can fix it, why don't I find organizations that are having those issues, jump into their world, fix those problems, build myself an opportunity. And if I'm there for 2, 5 years, great. If I'm there for 10 years, even better. And just see where my world goes. And where it started was really healthcare. Healthcare was one of the top 3 industries that I served as a vendor. And so I went to those groups. I remember the first HR director that I worked underneath. He said, "Josh, I can't hire you because you don't
Hmm.
have your degree." I said, "Great, that's cool. Find somebody who can do it better than me, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
To that was the ballsiest move I ever made in my career.
That's awesome.
I don't advise anybody doing that, but it worked. He called me back and said, "Yeah, let's do this." And I was there for a while. I changed their processes. I fired their ad agency. They still do some of the same processes today, and they're actually much better than they were when I was there. After I left, I brought somebody in that did a fantastic job. Tim may be joining it on the video chat today, but they continue to do those things and have led themselves even farther forward. But then I went to an organization called Fairview Health in Minneapolis, one of the
Hmm.
region's largest healthcare organizations, and continued some of those processes. And now I'm here at NUS and doing the same thing. So it was really taking what I did, the problem solving that I had as a vendor, but just bringing it in house and making it empowering leaders and HR professionals to do the same thing. And really, anybody in any career can really do the same thing. It's not necessarily the tactical things that you're doing every day. It's the principles behind what you're doing in the job that you can really move to just about any organization.
And so um, I know that there are people who, first of all, actually, let me before I ask this or kind of move into this. Thanks everybody who's here, the millions of fans that continue to come. Really appreciate you being here. If somebody would do me a favor and put the link that you're using to see this in the chat, it would be easier and helpful for me to be able to kind of embed that back into LinkedIn, that I'm trying to all do this concurrently since the system hates me if you missed the beginning. It absolutely loathes me. And so if you can pop that in the chat, Lorena, Nicole, Joe, whoever is kind of in there, Dion, any of
Jessica
you,
Chung just posted it
Chris,
out to us. We appreciate it, Jessica. Thank you very much.
Jessica, I think what you posted is awesome, but it's not the right one. What I have from
Ooh,
Dion, and it's not the right one, Jessica, not because of you, but because of me, because I put it out there and it is the wrong one. So now that's how I know this. So I am putting, oh, you all are awesome. Thank you so much. Um,
thanks, people.
Thank you all so much, people. So I'm putting this up. Boom. So I want to, let me get rid of this. I want to multitask. So, what I would like to ask, though, in connection to that, is um, when you sat and thought about this next step and being a person of a certain age with responsibilities, with a mortgage, right? With whatever you had going on, I don't know, kids, not like whatever was happening. Talk to us a little bit about um, how that is weighs in to these decisions, because I know it's not about being irresponsible. We all understand that. We're all going to say that. I get that. But at the end of the day, there is a risk reward threshold to something like
Mhm.
this. So what
Yep.
was that like for you?
It was, one of the biggest burdens that I kept is the financial burden. How
Mm,
do I financially sustain my family? And many people across the country go through that same thing. How do I, pay the mortgage bill, pay the food bill, pay the electricity bill, those types of things. And so one of the greatest questions that I do when I do job search seminars or I'm talking on Job Hunt Chat, which I moderate every Monday night,
woo!
is
Put a plug for that on Twitter's.
hashtag plug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag Job Hunt Chat, Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central,
Yes.
6 p.m. Pacific,
Thank you.
for those of you on the West Coast. Um, but we talk, one of the questions that I ask is, um, where do you want to be? How much money do you want to make? What do you want to do? It's realistic questions. It's knowing, does the job that you want pay what you want
Hmm.
in the region that you're in? You need to be realistic. And sometimes people are too low, too high. And so you have to figure out that you have to do your research. It's not just jumping into what's next. You have to be very thoughtful about your job search and your job transition, so that way you don't jeopardize or make that transition that much harder. What was nice for me at the time is that I had my now ex-wife, she was very supportive. She said, um, go where you get to be you the best. That was one of the biggest pieces of advice that she ever provided. And hopefully people have those kinds of people in their lives when they're making these transitions.
So, and it's first of all, it's awesome that you had, and By the way, for everybody who's on here, I have removed the wrong link and placed the right one into LinkedIn. So I am awesome. Um, I wonder if the fact that you had a support structure for you, you're describing it as being validating, encouraging, but I don't know that everybody has that. And
It does.
I don't mean necessarily that they don't have anybody. That's not what I'm saying. I mean somebody who's going to be there but also be risk considerate, right? There certainly would be spouses and parents and things like that around your life that might say, "Are you sure? I don't think you ought to be doing this. It doesn't sound like it's a wise decision. You're good at
Mhm.
sales. You should find just another sales gig. Like that's your lot in life." And so I think it's important to kind of bring that up because not everybody who's going to be hearing this today is going to feel like, "Hey, I can I can do that and do it well because my family, my friends, my whomever is going to just like be 100% with me." Um, so Joe asks a great question. Let me make sure I pop this up so you can see this. He is curious to hear your experience as a white male, right? To persons of color or women regarding their experiences, right? So do you think that it was, I'm going to say, Joe, I'm putting words in your mouth, so don't think I'm not noticing that I might be doing this. Do you think the experience, the potential experience is different if you're coming from gender differences, race differences, ethnicity differences, identification differences?
Completely, and as a recruiter, as a talent acquisition manager, I look at those things every time I hire someone. When
Mm,
I'm looking at a resume, I don't go into it with blinders on. I go into it with an open book, an open idea, an open head. And so when I'm talking to a candidate who I think is probably doing something very similar, making a career transition or what have you in their career, I ask the why. What's driving you forward? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? It's not about where you've been, what you've experienced. I want to give them a fresh start. And if that fresh start is genuinely perfect for my or potentially for my organization, then why not? Why not take the risk? Why not be their co-navigator,
mm-hmm.
their engagement representative, and lead them to that opportunity? I can't put myself in their shoes.
Yep.
That's not fair. But what I can do is I can be an open ear to what they're looking for and find that partnership between what I have versus what they want and try to lead both my organization and their career forward.
So, what do you think about? And this is fascinating, by the way. And so, certainly, let's make sure everybody understands. Josh has given a perspective on his experience, right? Like he's not representing. He's not representing everybody who's ever had an experience in changing careers,
Correct.
right? Uh, but so I want to make sure you don't feel the burden of the world on you when we're doing this, right? Um, but I would say, when I think about people who I've been doing this a while. When I do see people who are changing careers, I wonder how much, and Joe, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off what you brought up. I actually think it seems to me, what the bigger issue is age. And in terms of something potentially discriminatory or the way in which we have a potential bias against it. And what do I mean by that? Do we think someone who has been working in a particular field or professionally for 15 years, 20 years, who then decides to make a career change is appealing, attractive? And we need to be honest. I know a lot of us might say, yeah, like they've got all this great experience and I'm excited for them to come over and teach these young people what it really means to work or whatever people think is going to happen. Um, my experience has been battling with hiring managers who will say, dude, I don't, this guy, he's been doing something for a long time. Like, I'd rather have somebody who's not as far into their career, who I can mold and train a bit better, and who I can do, this, that, and that. That person's going to come in and already think they know how to do things, or there's a fear. Quite frankly, there's a fear of a 35-year-old manager who now is going to have a 48-year-old new employee coming in a role where that person's already coming in with 20 years of professional experience, and whatever, right? Whatever those limiters might be, I find age and experience somehow to cloud judgment. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Have you noticed that ever?
I do, and every different situation, every hiring manager that I've worked with is going to have some sort of bias or interest in any given different way. I try to, when I send phone interview notes, initial interview notes, I put pluses and minuses in there. Um, and what I do is I try to make sure that they're focused solely on their skills and abilities versus what their age may be, what the detractors may be.
Right.
I look to how they make the team better every day than where they were the day before. I do have to coach managers at times. Hey, you know what? Your bias is showing.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what do you mean? And I'll tell them, I'll explain it to them. Here's what we're going to do and why. We're going to get around it. I'm going to coach you around it so that way we can do better as an organization. But there are some. There's even bias towards young people.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was leaving Las Vegas a couple months back, and I ran into a young woman of color, single mom, with a young child living states away. She was flying to go pick up her child to spend time with her. And I heard her talking to what was her dad on the phone. I found that later on. And she was talking about her financial struggles.
Mm.
And when she got done and she hung up the phone, I said, you want to make a job change? Yeah. I said, what do you want to do? She goes, I don't know yet. I said, what are you doing now? And she said, I'm a dancer. I'm
Mm.
like, and I said, okay, this may sound insensitive. I said, what kind of dance? And she told me she was an exotic dancer. I'm like, okay, no big deal. We can also work with this. So what do you want to do? She goes, I want to get into hair and makeup in the entertainment world.
Mm.
I said, what's keeping you back? And she said, I don't know. I said, well, you're in Las Vegas, probably the mecca for hair and makeup,
Yep.
besides LA or New York or Miami. And I said, so where are you going to start? She didn't know. I said, so go maybe look at one of the casinos. They tend to hire from within. They tend to propagate from within. And I talked with actually the employment brand manager for one of the largest casinos in Las Vegas while I was there. And I told her about this young lady. And she goes, we do that all the time. We hire from within. So why not help her, guide her towards an entry level role? And then as she gets some experience, maybe some tuition reimbursement packaging, that she could go to school to learn that craft a little bit better and then build her career from there.
Mm.
All from a side by side seat interaction in one of the busiest airports in the country. You know,
And it's so, first of all, that's such a cool story that right, you just would have that conversation. And just so everybody knows, right, like, this is, if you've watched But First Coffee before, there's nothing scripted. This is always just a conversation. It's usually, I have to help um rein Jackie in a little bit, but like, it's just
are you telling me you need to crack the whip at me, John? Come on.
I just want to tell you, I mean, the idea of streamline is like, relative of definition when Jackie and I are doing this. But what I would say, though, in terms of just everybody understanding, like, we didn't talk about this before. Like, it's not like Josh and I have like an outline of what we're following. But one of the things that you just brought up there was something I wanted to make sure that we got to, which is this hiring from within. And the reason I'm saying that is because this concept of restarting your career does not necessarily mean, or always mean, you have to leave the organization you're in order to do that, right? Like, don't you
Yep.
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, there are organizations that do that are like, tell us what you want to do. You've been in accounting for a few years and you're thinking you want to kind of apply some of the marketing experience you have previously, or maybe you were a marketing minor in college years before and just know that, but they know you, right? They know that you know the product or service. Like, that could be a great way to restart, so to speak, your career as well.
Perfect story for that there, John. So when I was with Fairview Hospitals, obviously what tends to happen in healthcare is you get these really experienced older employees who retire. Most organizations are like, oh, retirement, time to put you to pasture, go off and do your thing, enjoy your traveling. One of the things that I did quite regularly is I advised those that were retiring, process you out, and your retirement, but then we're going to bring you back on as a casual employee.
Hmm.
And we're going to put you into a couple different roles that you could fill in when you have time, when you're home and you have nothing going on, or when we have people, especially during a pandemic, that were out because of COVID and couldn't work or had to take care of families, what have you. You had these people that knew the profession well, who still had licenses, who still had degrees that were still applicable to what we were doing as an organization, but in a slightly different capacity,
Right.
at their leisure, at their comfort, at their availability. We It's a huge resource when you talk about
Huge.
the older workers being discriminated against or making career pivots. Retirement is one of the biggest. They still have time, they still have drive, but they're done doing the demand of their work, the
Right.
demand of their career. So why not putting in something as simple as a casual role in your organization in a slightly diminished capacity where they can still provide, still make a little money on the side,
Sure.
um, but give back to an organization they love.
The workforce is has to be prepared. I mean, I was just sharing this with somebody. I think it was Monday. That some of the latest research is just talking about the fact that people are aware of the fact that they likely are going to have 60-year careers,
Mhm.
60, and yet that doesn't mean it's going to look the same for 60 years. It doesn't mean it's a 40, 50 hour a week career for 60 years. It could be just exactly to your point that in the retirement side of things, maybe somebody is like, a gig, a project, let me know if you need me. I was sharing with somebody yesterday when I was talking about Humoriso, and they were like, well, how do you, what do you mean you hire your people? This is hilarious, right? What do you mean you hire your people? I'm like, well, in America, you can actually bring somebody on as a W-2 employee.
Mhm.
The person's like, no, 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 no. I do understand that. I'm like, okay, then what do you ask the question differently? I don't I don't understand what you're saying. And the person's like, why wouldn't you just hire everybody as a contractor? Oh,
You want
I
to give them
understand.
benefits? You want to make them pay for it? Go right ahead.
Like, I was like, well, first of all, um, there's a couple of reasons. One of which being, just some of the things that you said. Like I do enjoy knowing that people that are involved in the work that we get to do don't worry about health benefits or dental benefits, or that their family has, can have coverage or whatever it might be in those areas. But I said to the person, because I anticipate, and rightly so, that these individuals who are choosing to bring their professional skill sets, their well-rounded competencies to Humoriso, um, I want them to know that they can full time plug into that and be a part of things. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a few people that are on that sort of, as needed 1099 thing. And one of them, very much like what you were sharing, she is someone I look up to, have for years. She like is amazing. Really, I call her my HR cougar. She loves that. But the she does. She loves it,
Okay.
and I'm not recommending that for everyone, right? But um, she's like, if you have a juicy investigation, call me. Love to do that. But does she want to be even a part-time employee? No. She wants to pick and choose some projects, some small ways that she can keep her hands in some HR things, and the work that I get to lead at Humoriso lends itself to that. So I'm open to it. It's great that you have these opportunities. But if you are changing careers, that might look a little differently versus sort of restarting or resuscitating, even if you're staying within the same discipline you used to be in, right? So she retired years ago from a pharmaceutical firm. She didn't want to just kind of jump back into another VP of HR role somewhere else. She took that package. She was able to retire, and then she has these opportunities to do these other kinds of projects that are still in her preferred discipline of work, but it's a different looking career than what she had before. right? And we need to be okay with that. And I think that if we're in the marketplace we're in right now, candidates rule.
They
Like,
do. Plain and
right?
simple. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when you talked a few minutes ago about the 80-year career, let's think about all the hiring managers
60,
that
my gosh, 60,
or
60.
60 years.
Yeah,
I'm thinking 80. You're
you'll
thinking
be in your
20,
80s.
20.
Yes,
Yeah, you'll be in
yes,
your
yes,
80s.
yes.
But I'm thinking about those hiring managers who are like, you mean they had this many jobs in their career, or they've had this many jobs on their resume? Shut the front door. Who
Yeah.
cares how many jobs they had? Are they applicable to the work that we're doing?
Yes.
If they're going to work 60 years in their career, they're going to have a variety of jobs. The days of the Cal Ripken employees where they do one job with one organization
Yes.
for their full,
Yes.
those days are done, over with,
Yes.
buried. Get me a
Yes.
shovel. I'm digging this thing.
Yep.
We're going to change every minimum, 1 to 2 years. We obviously see that now in a post pandemic, post recession, environment. It's going to continue, and so we need to get away from that. If my HR friends are seeing that and hearing that from their leaders, tell them enough's enough. Bury that excuse. Find caliber talent and forget about it.
It's interesting, right, that you say it that way because um, this morning, right, and those of you that know me and those who've heard this show, I'm a early riser, and so I'm in the gym quarter to 5, and uh, there's a guy who works the front desk at the gym at that time, and that the gym I go to is during the week it's 24/7, and so he has the overnight shift. And young guy, I think he's 25 if I remember correctly, and he just told me this morning that I don't think I'm outing him, that he's going to be leaving and taking a job. He is going to school for uh, or going to get certified as a trainer. But he said, I'm realizing I don't like being in the gym 24/7. That it makes me not love the gym when I'm work here, in the desk attendant, other roles that he has, as well as the learning to be a trainer. He's in the gym all day and night every day. So he said, I'm going to do something else for a while. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to do irrigation. I'm going to work for a company and install sprinkler systems because it's Florida. And so that, work all year and outside. And I said, that's a little different. And he's like, yeah, but I can do it. He's like, obviously it's manual labor and, and I'm cool with that. And, um, so I'm just going to do that. And I thought about this thinking, he's making a decision to take a job versus saying this is going to be his career. And sometimes that's just what it is. Like, I think sometimes we have hiring managers who look at these resumes and they're like, I don't see this person being here for 15 years, right? They've changed, they've done this and that. Okay, but sometimes it is just a job. I had the privilege of being at Work Human last week, and oh gosh, I forgot. I'm so
We
sorry.
were we were checking out your fandom and all
Yes.
your tweets. Yeah.
Here's my LinkedIn coffee mug for today. Thank you so much, with the little lid to keep it warm. Thank you so much. And you've got your energy drink. My gosh, just
I got to
pure
call it the
sugar.
LinkedIn user who said, hey, rolling with the Mountain Dew Rise. I'm a product aficionado, so nothing wrong
Yeah,
with that.
I mean,
I don't drink coffee. Come on.
yeah, it's cool. Whatever. It's still like it's just boring through your intestines. It's acid going right through you, but that's fine. Enjoy it.
I will.
The
Thank you. And I mean, the only reason why I go to my favorite coffee shops is for donut holes or for my friends, out here in the East in Canada, it's Tim Hortons. So I get
Oh,
Timbits.
Tim
Uh,
Hortons. Yeah, 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 yeah.
there's a Tim Hortons less than 6 blocks away. I'll be getting some before I leave Ohio.
You can get those new Justin Bieber donuts or whatever they have there. I
They're
saw that.
called Tim Biebs, from what I've been told.
Oh, is that what they are? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't have Tim Hortons in Minnesota, so
I don't
I
have
have to
them
live
here
vicariously
either.
through
Yeah,
others.
that's hilarious. I want to make sure I show this one too. We had they love the Ripken analogy, but Cal even played other positions from time to time, right?
There you
And
go.
so, but and that press, that's a great point because you don't hear a lot about that, right? The fact that he could be a utility player if needed. I mean, how about those games where, gosh, it was the Phillies, I want to say '09, somebody can correct me, '09, 2010, they had a game where they went like, I don't even remember, 18, 19 innings, and they were down to the pitchers of like the second baseman or shortstop. It'll all come to me. Like he wound up having to pitch one of the innings because they had to
Why not?
have somebody
Yeah,
do it because the game was taking so long, and you know that's that is like is he a part of the organization? Of course. Is he a team player that he's jumping in to get done what has to get done? Yes. The last time, if I remember correctly, that he had pitched was like college on like an off day or something. So it's not like he was warmed up for it or whatever. It's like, dude, let's move in from shortstop to the mound and let's go. You got to throw this. You got to throw this 17th inning for us. Let's go. That's like we have people like that in our organizations.
we do.
So to ask them about what trajectory do you see for yourself? How's it working out? Do you want to take a step back? I in the HR consulting world, I get to talk to people a lot, obviously, and we're doing a bunch of hiring at Humoriso, thankfully, and for our own organization as well, not
Always
just for
be
the
hiring.
clients that we support. Yeah, yeah, right. And I'll have people say to me, John, I know that you may not think I have experience that would translate into being involved with your organization, but here's what I've done. Here's how I've done it. Um, and I'm always like, okay, yeah, let's talk because that it's totally transferable. Some of those perspectives, some of those skill sets, and we've got to be a little bit willing to do it. But I'd also say the candidates have to be a little willing too. So I talked to somebody as well the end of last week, who hit me up and was like, hey, I'm leaving where I was and I'm looking for my next gig. Here's exactly what I'm looking for, down to the kind of organization, down to the size of the organization, down to that. Now, look, I'm all about go after what you want. I understand that. I'm not belittling that. But it was so like, like it's so
The funnel
narrow.
was,
Right. And it's like, do you have something like that for me? I don't even know if something like that exists, but I mean, I'll I'll let you know if something comes along that'll work. So what's your expectation management, right? I think is part of this as well when you're looking to restart your career.
I naturally talk to job seekers, whether they're coming to my organization or I'm doing a seminar, about increasing the size of their funnel. Because we all know how funnels work, right? The more stuff we pour in, the greater the opportunity of something falling out at the bottom. It's the same thing with a job search. So when a candidate comes to me and says, "Oh, Josh, I only want to work in, Mankato, Minnesota." Great. Well, we'll get you. We'll help you. But what about Rochester? Rochester's, down southern Minnesota as well. Yeah, it's a bit of a commute, or maybe you'd have to move, but it's still in the general area. I want to double the size of your opportunity funnel
Hmm.
to make sure that at least one of them results in you getting a job offer. That's how we should work. And people should be looking at the same thing. And it doesn't have to necessarily be that one job. You can look for not only that job that you're interested in that company, but I almost guarantee that there's a competitor doing the exact same thing that is likely paying the exact same kind of dollars not far away. So why not open the shutters just a little bit to that industry competitor and increase the size of your funnel? See what happens.
I want to ask. I got um, a gap question for you as well, but I want to make sure that I Chris Hadley is letting us know that where he is, Tim Biebs are sold out, right? So here's what I need, right? Like those of you who
Then
are near Tim Hortons, like somebody send me these things. I don't even know what they are. That these Tim Biebs are. So someone needs
um,
to mail them to
if
me.
if Jessica Chung is still watching the thread,
Yeah,
you're going to be in New Orleans, right?
I will be.
I
Yeah, yeah.
I know you're going to be in New Orleans. I just had to lobby that up.
Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate that.
she'll be
Will
coming to
you
New
be in
Orleans
New
as well.
Orleans?
I will be in New Orleans. I
Oh,
will
I,
be
I
a Sherm 22 influencer just along with you.
just like
Um,
that. I don't know if I'll be
yeah.
walking around doing this, but I'll let you do that part.
The reason why I do that is my buddies
There's
Jimmy
I come from
Fallon
a I
and
come
Justin
from a
Timberlake. So
I appreciate that, and I'm all about JT, but I come from Philly, and so when I see fingers get raised, it's usually just one kind. So it makes me a little, yes, thank you.
You're showing me you're number one. Is that what you're showing me?
Yes, we're number one. We're number one.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we could always do the weird turkey hand. That no, I don't, that's another JT Jimmy thing from the Tonight Show. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Um,
yeah.
Chris, Chris, if you really want, or if we can't get Timbits, I recommend the birthday cake Timbits.
Oh,
They're on.
well,
They're on point.
this somebody needs to help me out here because I don't know what these things are, and I'm not ashamed to say I am a believer. So I mean I love
Good boy.
Beebs, and so I mean he's pretty talented, but I didn't know he was also into all of this Tim Horton stuff. So I'd be curious to see
And
what
he's
these things
he's
are.
he's into hockey jerseys too. Apparently, the
Yeah,
Toronto Maple
yeah,
Leafs
yeah, yeah.
have
A
a
hockey jersey
Justin Bieber.
that are
Yeah.
like 4 sizes too large because he's like
No,
swimming in them.
but it's black. It's
I
black
don't
and
know.
yellow. I don't get it.
It's
But
like
maybe we can.
Pittsburgh.
Exactly. We'll see if
Yeah,
Jessica Chung can bring you some Tim Biebs from
awesome.
Toronto when she comes to New Orleans
Thanks,
sometime.
Jessica. Appreciate that. She also has volunteered to run technical for me when Jackie's not
Yeah.
here, which I also appreciate. I saw your
Hey,
comment,
she's
Jessica. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I honestly may take you up on it. This platform makes me feel, and I know it's not true, makes me feel 104 years old. Like I'm good with tech. Things work for me. I can look at a system and kind of get into it. This platform makes me feel like an idiot. I'm just going to say it, and so I'm done. Okay, I'm not complaining.
well. What was it that on your when you were on your TikTok? You did the little bubble things that you do above your head every now and
Hey,
then.
buddy,
One of
let
them
me tell you
said that you're
something.
like 80 something.
Let
You
me
what your
tell
age
you
was.
something. Don't First of all, don't try to hate on me now. Let me tell you this. So my last video, or my next to last video, I just want to show this to everybody because my kids are flipping out. My last one. Let me bring it up. I don't know if I can get it to
How
if
many
it's easy
views?
to
I
see
know what
on
you're
the
going to tell me.
screen. 101,000 views so far, plays so far, right? About baseball, and my son is like, I, I will take you down. The Because he's all on the Twitch and does all the
Yeah.
streaming stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got 101,000 so far on my TikTok Insta reel. So thanks.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, I feel good about myself
Glad I
now.
could help you.
Thank you.
Lobby that one up.
Thank you, because I feel super warm right now after feeling like an idiot with Restream. Okay, much better. Let, let me do this, make sure we get to this as well as far as the kind of restart. And I think it's a very practical piece, but I'm curious to know if you've seen an evolution of this in some way since, in all the years of acquisition. Um, uh, Maternity, paternity, parental care, when there are those gaps where people step out of the workforce in order to do those things. Um,
Can I pause 1 second? One thing
yeah,
you have to add
please.
into that separation, military service,
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
here at
Thank you.
NUS we are recognized by the Department of Labor for our hiring and retention of veterans.
Yeah.
I always include them into that separation because not everybody thinks about that.
And obviously, I just blew it there too. So I'm super glad you called me out on that. Right. So that's absolutely true. Uh, how do you think, or how have you seen that change? Is it still an issue? Because let me make sure I remind people of things. For many organizations, it's go to our linked applicant tracking system, upload your resume, or it's in Indeed, and I'm recruiting through Indeed, and I just see dates and I see gaps. What do you? How are you seeing that change, or is it the same? Are we ignoring those individuals?
um, I'd love to say that people are being thoughtful behind that, but I don't know if AI takes that stuff into consideration.
Mm,
We're all doing this all computer based, this stuff to make our recruiting life easier and our hiring life easier. But do the computers take the thoughtful process to that?
yeah,
When I see a gap, I ask about it. What did you do? Tell me more. How did you stay informed and engaged in your career, or where your career transition is going to be going to after that? One of the people who shared the post about today's conversation, Heidi Youngblood, stayed at home for a number of years of her career. She
mm,
was in HR. She was a client of mine at her previous employer. Took some time off to help raise her children. I say time off; it wasn't really time off. She was raising kids. She was running her house. Um, and then she re-entered the workforce, wanted to get back into HR, and she reached out and she said, "Josh, how do I do this? Where do I start?" And we had a great conversation about different roles, different ideas. I connected her with friends in the industry that are in her area to try to springboard that in there. But I sent her to people who were thoughtful behind that transition, who could take her total skill sets and find a way to get her back into the workplace, back engaged into a role. And her and I still talk to this day
Mm-hmm.
as she's looking towards her next step in that career evolution in HR. So a thoughtful recruiter, a thoughtful hiring leader they'll dismiss the thought of, oh, they left, let's use it
Mm-hmm.
against them. Instead, what they'll say is, okay, how do we harness that? How do we build you back up to 110% productivity after that time away?
So, but let's be algorithm practical.
Mhm.
Does it make sense if you're looking to get back into the workforce, if you're restarting, whether you're staying in your, I'll say your discipline, your industry of choice, or you're trying to do something else? But if you're coming back into it, do you think it makes sense to on your resume to put that time frame in there and to call out the fact that you were a, I'm going to say, stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, caregiver, whatever you want? Do you think that that weakens
Domestic
though?
engineer.
Yes, my gosh, I haven't heard that in so long, but yes.
Yep.
um, do you think it weakens your resume? Do you think it's better to do it because the systems read it better? What do you think?
Me personally, it doesn't matter to me either way.
Okay.
I look at the person, not the data, not the statistics. Um, I'm an outlier. I'm
Well,
a
but
I,
there are
I look,
people who are, I know there are people who are watching. And again, let me make sure I do a shout out. Thank you for the millions of you that are here with us again today, this week. Um, who are working with systems that are doing parsing for them ahead of time, right? They're reading the parsed resumes. They're deciding automatically who's moving forward, who winds up in your Comeet mailbox. I mean, we know all these systems, right? We know how these things work. So the fact that there's a gap, are you preset to sort of pass over those folks? Have you removed that? If not, and you have somebody who puts in, because I've seen resumes both ways, right, where that's just they just list the for-profit nonprofit work that they've done and just leave out anything where there's gaps. But then I've also seen the resumes where they'll put in 8 years, you know caregiver, and for at home, and wondering if everybody who's listening, like, do you feel like that there's a better way to do that, one way or the other, or is there a third way that we're not even mentioning yet because of the way these technology pieces are put together?
yeah.
That's got to be
I'd love to
something we
say
talk
that
about.
I'd love to say that there's a direct answer to that, but I don't think there is, because everybody's using different systems and they're all set differently. Some people aren't using systems at all.
Yep.
They're
Yes.
doing
Yes.
paper applications still. I know, right?
Oh my gosh, I just got like chills up my spine. Don't do that. Don't do that.
2008 called and they said they want their ATS back.
2008.
Um, I mean, come on, that was really when things really hit the fan on
Yeah.
ATSs, because
Yep.
companies didn't want to get the 900 applications for the one opening on paper and not know what to do with it. That was the huge transition then. But yeah, I mean, there's got to be a good way to do it, and I don't think there's one resounding solution.
Yeah.
Um,
I
if,
mean,
if,
again, and
if
I'm
some
curious
HR
though.
god or HR tech god would come up with some solution for us that would do that, great. I don't think it's there yet.
Well, and I wonder too if part of it isn't. Um, and as you are answering, by the way, those of you that are throwing things in, I'm just kind of sharing your comments so everybody else could read them as well. But the idea of being system dependent solely, um, might be a limiter to those that want to restart their careers. It really could
A
be.
bias, a technology bias.
Perhaps, right? Because AI is there. It's not, machine learning has no bias. Well, if we program it that way, then yes, it does.
Mhm.
Yes, it does. If I have in the system, I'm not looking for gaps, or it's got to be this many years of this only. We need to be a bit more thoughtful about it. Honestly, one of the things that I try to remind organizations about often is stop putting 12 years of experience in X. What in the world is magic about 12? Can you at least give me a range? Because you might cause people, and you brought up a great example a few minutes ago of people groups to be thoughtful of, which is our service personnel. And research tells us that military personnel, when they're coming back into the civilian workforce, will read job descriptions that are posted for roles that are open, and they'll read the bullet points for qualifications, and if it spills into the way in which you describe your job duties and responsibilities, they're reading every bullet point. And research tells us that if they don't feel that they match 90 plus percent, so that's almost every bullet point, those individuals will not even apply.
Correct. Correct.
They won't apply.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, so because you have 12 years, and that military person feels like, well, mine, I'm probably about 10 years. They wouldn't want me. What is the difference between 10 and 12 years? Somebody tell me what the difference is. Because I'm sure besides the two, right? Yeah, yeah. Like most hiring managers couldn't tell the difference. If I put two people in a room, one with 9 years and one with 12 years, and let them both work, and at the end of the day, go to that manager and say, which one do you think had 9 years? Which one had 12? They're guessing. I don't care what anybody says, they're guessing as to who it is, right? Because at some point there's a negligible return on years of experience at some point, right? So be thoughtful about those people through
I
your
don't get the
systems.
limiter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if we're restarting careers, why are you putting up so many roadblocks for people?
I talked about this all the time. Why are we putting needless hurdles in the process? Not only for the hiring team, but also for the candidate. You want to talk about candidate experience? I try to find simpler ways of hiring each and every time that I can.
Hmm.
Whether it's the conversation, whether it's the numbers or the processes, the hurdles, the leaders, I try to find ways to limit or to eliminate them because I know somebody else. I mean, I'm in a career fair with 60 other employers. Somebody else is going to have a simpler process and going to steal somebody right from underneath me because I have an extra step in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I
Right.
mean, assessments. Who's still doing assessments? Raise your hand. Okay, I see classroom. Some of you, some assessments are good. Some assessments are unnecessary. The way that
I'm
you do the assessment may
the
be.
way that you do the assessment. Yes, there's so much to that because sometimes we look at the tool and say, the tool may be fine. It may be fine. It could be the absolute way that you're using it. And I also would say, um, why are you laughing at me?
I'm laughing at Jamie's post here. The 12-year difference between XL 13 versus 2006. I'm talking about an an Apple One to an Apple 22.
I mean, Jamie is the worst person to have this kind of stuff with because he is he's gonna, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong, right? The person, do they know Windows? Yes, I'm proficient in XP. I understand that, but I would
Jamie's
say,
going total shit disturber here. That's
yeah,
perfectly fine. I love it.
it's his lot in life. But the idea of experience is usually where the issue is, right? 12 years of experience. Of course, if we need somebody to know, right, Microsoft Office at this level, we understand those things. But most people aren't calculating years there. They only put things like must know, Excel 2013 or whatever that it is. Okay, fine. You don't care how many years of experience I have in Excel, but you're going to put those qualifiers in to say 12 years of experience in sales. Okay, I know people with 12 months of experience in sales who are killing it, who have tell me why I don't want to talk to that person. Tell me why, right? We're not in a great market for us to be so snotty about people who want to restart or redirect their careers, right? We need to be open to these things. I'm not saying it's going to work out for everyone. I understand that. But for us to kind of be like, No, 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 no. Well, you're going to be knowing a whole lot of people and sit there and just burn out the few that you have because they just need help.
Yeah.
That's the
And
reality.
they're going to get so far down that pipeline that they're going to be looking for anybody with a pulse. And then the barriers that they put in, they passed upon so much talent, or they let so much talent go. They dug themselves a hole.
100%, 100%. And listen, from an encouragement standpoint, though, I do want to make sure we take the last couple minutes to kind of say a few things in
Positive.
on a positive. Not that it's all been negative, but um, what are you, what's your view on when you want to restart? Whether it's a gap, right? I took time off because I had to do something else, or I want to redirect my career. Um, what's your thoughts around fear? What do you tell people who sit and say, "I'm afraid to do that"?
Everybody's different. I'd love to
Yeah.
say that there's a magic cure to overcoming fear, or overcoming risk, but there isn't. You need to know where your level of risk averseness might be. Where what are you willing to do? How far outside of the circle or outside of your comfort zone are you willing to go? And it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Hmm.
You can take two steps forward, and if it doesn't work out or something doesn't go the way you want, take one step back and reassess, and then take another two steps, and do that ladder kind of technique. Um, but change is hard. Change is going to be hard. Um, you know, when you change companies, you're going to go to a different payroll cycle, a different benefit cycle. Nothing's going to be the exact same. So you need to get some of those little fear, the micro fear pieces
Yeah.
out of the way.
Yep.
Know that that's just going to happen. It's just a part of the process, and then look to where the benefit is. Where are you going to succeed? Where are those wins going to come from that you can stack up to have this really large win overall? Um, and almost always, what people tend to see is after they've gone that far, the leap was worth the jump.
Yeah.
They land in a much better place. Um, I tell my back when I left my recruitment advertising career, I was angry. I was unhappy with what happened and how it went down. I would never give them the gratification of saying, "Hey guys, thanks for laying me off in 2012."
Right.
But I do. I say, you know what? It was a great move because now I'm
Yeah.
in a different arena. I love what I do. I'm still working with some of the same people. Um, the HR director of my company here at NUS was my customer back then. Um, Leaving there led
Yeah.
me to working with him directly, and we're
Yeah.
having a freaking blast.
Yeah.
Um, so thank
Uh,
you, Paul. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Vince, for
Yeah.
laying me off in
Right.
2012 and leading me to where I am today.
And of course that you it's always easier to do that looking back, right? Like
Oh yeah,
there's been time and
I've
success, and
healed.
so you can, and you've healed, really. Like it's funny, but some people really need to do that. Like they
Yeah,
need to take that minute. You're not going to be able to see it perhaps all 2 weeks after you're laid off. um,
correct.
but don't be afraid of that approach. Listen, let me tell you something. You just mentioned it without really saying it. Your network matters, right? And so
Mhm.
those of you that are thinking about restarting your careers, lean on your network. People
Mhm.
know you. So ask them what they think. They may say to you, you know what, we have this job opening that you'd be great for. I know on paper you may not look, but you know how to do this, you know how to do, and they're going to actually even sell it to you. So don't be that can be helpful, I should say, to your any fear that you may be experiencing. Your network, those relationships that you've built, let those serve you and help calm the fears, because there's value, there's worth in the competencies that you have and that you're bringing to the table. It just may be that someone else needs to help you sort of look to how they can be applied because you don't have that frame of reference. Someone in your network might see in you what you can't yet see in yourself. That's wonderful. Honestly, that's great. Um,
Amen to that.
right?
Amen to that. I mean, so many people, you and I know this, so many people have run around and built a LinkedIn network that is their virtual high school yearbook. They got all the signatures, good to know you, and then they put it on the shelf and let it go. Well, it's time to dust that off every now and then. Engage, drop a comment, drop a like, drop
Oh,
a share, because literally it was that engagement that led me to those three interviews an hour after
yes.
being laid off.
Yes.
That's what this whole thing's for,
That's
people.
what it's for.
Come on.
You want your high school yearbook, stay on Facebook. But let you know if you're going to have LinkedIn, let it be used for you this way. Well, this was awesome, buddy. Thank you so much for hanging
My
out with
pleasure,
us
man.
for this hour. Um, Let me just say a couple things. First of all, everybody who's here, the millions who are following, thank you so much for being here, and appreciate your kindness in my tech
Don't ever
issues.
change, Nicole. Love it. The
Yeah.
greatest quote ever in every high school yearbook.
It's KIT. The other thing I want to make sure I mention, actually, too, for some of you who are listening, if you follow me on LinkedIn, if you're connected to me on LinkedIn, 1 o'clock today, I'm doing 1 o'clock Eastern time. I'm doing a webinar with 650 on compliance and the remote workforce and some things as well. So if you need a SHRM credit, I know that'll
Did
be
you
a
just say
part of that as well.
compliance?
But it's me, it's going to be sexy compliance, so it's going to be a
Yes.
good time. And
Caffeinated.
caffeinated sexy compliance. I should actually trademark that. Caffeinated sexy compliance. CSC. Okay, I'll work on
Do I
that.
get some residual credit from
Yeah,
that?
I'll send you a case of that crap you're drinking. The but otherwise, we will be back here next week. Jackie will be back from her travels. We'll have lots of stories because the two of us were at Work Human and Greenhouse was this week, and so lots of stuff that we've experienced.
Unleash.
Unleash. We've got lots of stuff that's been going on, so we'll have lots to talk about next week. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.